Excited to talk to you a little bit about a bleeding disorder that oftentimes gets overlooked. Sometimes is discovered later in life, but is so important for us to talk about because so many people suffer unknowingly for a long time with extended season of bleeding externally, internally, all kinds of things. And we really want to dive into the details about how important it is to discover if you have a bleeding disorder like von Willebrand's disease. My name is Jonathan James. I'm the president and CEO of Hope Charities, and we do a lot of work to advocate for patients with rare disease and chronic illness across nationwide. And we are really excited to bring an incredible educational opportunity for you to learn more about this important disease, specifically von Willebrand's disease, and to learn more about what it entails. And today I've invited a good friend of mine to join me to talk about this on today's podcast, Sophie Johnson. It is great to see you. Thanks so much for joining me today on this pre-event podcast. Great to see you.
I'm glad I get to be here.
I know you look great, and we've been friends for a while. We've gotten to know you some, and I just want to point out, I mean, for fans, for Sophie fans out there, if you have not gotten your latest issue of the Hope Factor magazine, there is a great article in here that you are really unpack your story in great detail. This is a great issue and specifically a great article that you did. And I just want to say thank you from all of us for being so brave and courageous to share your story. I know it's a place of vulnerability, but that is a great article really that people can reference. It's on our website. You can go and look it up too. But thank you so much for doing that. Thanks for being such a great advocate and really getting your story out there, because I think there's a lot more people facing difficulty and feeling disenfranchised by living with a rare bleeding disorder that don't even realize that there's so many other people out there that are living with it that are also dealing with the same challenges. And sometimes just knowing that there's somebody else facing the same challenges can give you enough courage to keep going for the next day, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely where I get a lot of my encouragement for advocacy is from the community and everybody else.
Yeah, so true. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. For the first, maybe people are just now getting to meet you for the first time. They're getting to know a little bit more about your story. So tell me just a little briefly about where you're from, what your diagnosis is, and a little bit about how you came to find out that you have a bleeding disorder.
So I'm from Jacksonville, Alabama, and that's probably, I guess, like an hour outside of Birmingham. Definitely a more rural area, so there's not a whole lot. There is a hospital, not a great one, but there is a hospital, just not a whole lot going on out here. And I was diagnosed when I was 18. I'm 20 now. I was a senior in high school. I was halfway through my senior year, and I have von Willebrand's disease. I didn't state that. But, and I was diagnosed right after I had a, I guess, menstrual cycle, but not really, that lasted over 10 weeks long.
Oh.
And that was all the beginning of my senior year of high school. So I was doing all the normal things I was doing, just bleeding and didn't know why. I was diagnosed 2 days after I had a laparoscopy for endometriosis. So they called me and said, "You have von Willebrand's," right after I had surgery. So I'm not in my right mind. Just a little, recovering from surgery and pain, still bleeding. And they call and they say it over the phone like it's just normal and I should know what that is. And it wasn't until a week later I called them back. I said, "Hey, you said I had something wrong with me. What was that?" And they just said, "Oh, it's just von Willebrand's disease. We'll talk about it at your follow-up." This was a GYN office, so it was definitely a surprise. I was not expecting that.
Right. That's incredible. And there you are in the middle of just doing life, and you realize, had you had problems before with long menstrual cycles that you were suspicious of something and just hadn't had it diagnosed, or was this
Yeah,
new?
I started my cycles when I was 10. I was in 4th grade.
Mm.
Very young. I feel for my mom because she had to help me with that. You look and you're like, "I'm bleeding, something's wrong with me." And I was so young, I didn't know anything about that. So my mom did educate me, and she actually began taking me to a pediatric gynecologist at the children's hospital closest to me. And
Wow.
they were just like, well, she's bleeding, birth control. And they
Mhm.
gave me birth control at 10.
Oh my gosh.
It's, I already knew
Did it
then
work? I mean, did it help in any capacity, or you just didn't do
I
anything?
my struggle with birth control is it doesn't ever help my bleeding. It messes with me more like hormonally and mentally. So
Right,
I don't take it. I don't like it. I
right.
don't like how it makes me feel. So because they started it so young. And so my mom had been trying, and then I kind of got to where, I mean, before saw the doctor that diagnosed me, I had been to 5 other gynecologists.
Wow.
Even the one who had been my mom's gynecologist since um, she started having kids for about 30 years. He had been her gynecologist. He delivered me. He knew
Mm,
everything. He knew my mom's history. My mom had some other female problems that so he knew her history, and
mhm.
he still was just like, oh, birth control. And so that was just kind of what they wanted to do. They didn't want to look any further. So
Right.
that's
Well, I think that there's a problem across all, you know, there, specialties, if you will, that a lot of them, it's if it's not 80% of the time that this occurs, then they don't really know what to do. They just send you to a different specialist. And so that's kind of a hard journey. What was it that inspired you and your mom to keep knocking on doors? Because at some point you got connected to a hematologist or somebody, right?
yeah. It really was that big final, like, stretch of bleeding, and in the
Mhm.
pain I was in, I was having like, terrible back pain, and I just wasn't functioning normally, and obviously,
Mhm.
my iron was low, so I just wanted to sleep all the time, and it just is that's not normal for an 18-year-old. Like, normally,
Right.
as an adult, you would have a ton of energy. I was barely able to go to school, and at that
Mhm.
time, I worked a job. I was in high school. I was doing extracurriculars and did all of that while bleeding. So, I did find a doctor that, when I first started my bleeding, just did, like, the basic test, blood test, nothing
Mhm.
abnormal showed, and then it just kept happening, and they were like, "Well, let's just go in and look." Okay, and so then they see endometriosis. They told
Mhm.
my mom how bad it was, that they were like, "She probably needs a hysterectomy at some point." And so
Mhm.
that's crazy to hear for my mom, and she told me after the fact, at 18 years old, they're saying, "Maybe a hysterectomy." We were like
Mhm.
had no answers, and then you're like, "Here's what we're gonna give you is these options." And then when they called and told me I have vulnerable burns, they didn't really elaborate. They were just like, "We'll see you at your follow up." So this was 2 days before Christmas when they diagnosed me. So
Oh
Merry
my
Christmas.
gosh.
Yeah,
Right.
it was a whirlwind. I look back now and I'm like, I don't even know how we functioned.
Right.
We had to wait for that follow up appointment to know. And I mean, from the moment we were told it was von Wilburns, I mean, I am a research person, so I immediately took to do research, not just the like Wikipedia research, but
Right.
in-depth research.
Mhm.
My mom like we did the same thing, both of us. We're just constantly like, what can we learn about this? And
Mhm.
um I go to that appointment, that follow up, and he's just like, well, we can try birth control. You'll be okay. The endometriosis is gone. And he's like, don't worry. Don't get upset. Nobody ever dies from von Willebrand's. He said that to
What?
me. He said, nobody ever dies from that. And I look back now
Oh
and I'm,
my gosh.
yeah, nobody ever dies from excessive bleeding. That's like most the reason why people pass away,
Right.
in accidents. Even people who bleed normally can
Right.
pass from that. So
Right.
he
That's
just,
crazy.
yeah. So he had sent me to like a smaller um, hematologist in my area, but I come to find out that was more of just an oncologist, and he dealt
Mhm,
with cancer patients. He
mhm,
referred me to a hematologist in Birmingham who I see now.
mhm.
But during that time frame, like, I was just waiting and waiting for appointments, and my mom was continuing to do research, and then she found our local chapter just while doing some research, and she did not know what to expect. Saw they were having an annual meeting, and then there we were, and we met the HPDA chapter, and
Yeah.
at that conference is where I met Dr. Singleton, and
Mm.
she was like, "Come down to Louisiana, like, I can get you in." And so that is when things finally started to pick up. I was getting educated more because I was more plugged into the community. I finally had a hematologist, and finally got factor. And so from then, it's just been okay. Now we figure out what type, and we do this, and kind of like now that I know what it is, I'm still learning and trying to
Yeah.
work through all of that. It feels
Right.
not that long ago, but it was a long time ago. I'm still
Right. How has life changed since you've gotten treatment, since you've gotten the proper diagnosis? Has it improved your overall life and challenges?
it definitely has improved my way of life, especially like my cycles. So I have always had people wanting to push the birth control, and I at the beginning of this year just said no more. I don't want any birth control. I don't want any nothing like that. And everybody still was like, it's going to help your bleeding disorder. It's going to help. Ever since then, since I've been off of it, my cycles are fine.
Wow.
They're 5 days, whereas they used to be 10 or more. And I just infused that has helped with my bleeding, and I'm able to go about my day. I can work my job. I can go to school. I mean, I don't have to worry about just like feeling terrible or having so much bleeding that I shouldn't leave my house in case I have to, you know, change
Yeah.
clothes or anything like that.
Right.
That's definitely improved like my mental health and my quality of life. Because I
That's
thought those things were normal. Ever since I was 10, I thought, oh, you know, you're on your cycle, you're gonna ruin a pair of shorts and you're gonna ruin something. Well, I don't have that problem anymore.
wow. I mean, the quality of life improvement sounds dramatic and incredible, and we've heard that from a lot of people who've really gone through mysterious challenges that they just couldn't wrap their head around. And of course, birth control is very commonly, offered, thing. And some people it works for, some people it doesn't. But it's interesting because no person actually, improves their genetic bleeding disorder through something like hormonal treatment like birth control, and ultimately you're just managing symptoms. You're not really actually addressing the root cause of the problem. And so I think the thing that's so inspiring about your story that you go into a lot of depth in the article that you wrote about your story is that you had so much persistence and diligence, you and your mom, to keep asking and keep looking and keep self-educating. And so for a lot of people that might be watching this and thinking like, maybe I have the same problem, maybe this is something I need to investigate more, what was it that really inspired you to keep going when you kept being like kind of told wrong information and suppressed, and when you would ask questions they were kind of dismiss your quite like, what was it that gave you the fuel to keep going when you were being confronted with so much of that?
I definitely think it was just overall knowing like the age I was at, seeing everybody able to function, and some days I couldn't function. I was like, this is not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Every doctor want to say this is normal, or this is how you are, or you have heavier cycles. It's just that. And I have always told my mom, we say this all the time. We're always like, you know your body. You know your body better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that definitely is why I continue to keep searching, um,
Mhm.
because you just know, like, I can't even put it into words, like, you just know when you don't
Mhm.
feel like yourself. I felt at when I first had Factor, I felt I couldn't even tell you, like, the night and day difference
Wow.
was insane because I bled for so many months and had a surgery, and after that surgery, I was prescribed 800 milligram ibuprofen after
What?
that bleeding, and so it just kept going and going and going for so many months to where when I first had Factor, I was like, "Oh, this is how I should always feel. Like, this is how my body should feel. This should be how I bleed." It
Wow.
was a eye-opening experience.
Major aha moment for you
Yeah,
to
yeah,
realize, "Oh my gosh, this is normal?"
yeah, literally.
Wow. It's amazing. It's a miracle that you didn't die. I mean, I honestly, so how many people do when they were just given ibuprofen or something and had this hidden problem that they didn't know was a problem, you know?
And I look back on other surgeries I've had. I've had major a couple of major surgeries growing up, and I I remember having excessive bleeding,
Mm,
and I look back and I still am like, I don't know how I didn't die. I mean, me and my mom talk about it all the time.
mm,
I can't, like, fathom it. Like, it's like, obviously, I'm here for a reason. Like, luckily, I made it through all of these things. Um,
mhm,
but it's not that case for everybody, and so then that makes me wanna be more of an advocate too. I definitely
mhm.
think that,
How has it helped you you talked about getting involved in your chapter, getting involved in different types of educational opportunities. How has that made a positive impact on your journey as well? Because your physician treatments, and experiences sometimes I mean, it's an hour once a year or whatever. You're very limited exposure to conversations there. But you've been really disciplined about you and your mom both, like making sure you go seek out educational moments where you can learn more, and how has that made an impact on your journey?
that has been the biggest tool, definitely, has been the community and, like, the resources, Hope, the online conferences y'all do. One of my
Mhm.
first ones was the Joint Health Conference, and that
Wow.
blew my mind. I mean, I love all of the, like, online ones, but, our local chapter, I've gone to, other ones around the country. Like, it's just been that's been the biggest source of education. I feel like you get
Mhm,
more from those than you do at your doctor. I know my
mhm,
doctor doesn't necessarily try to educate, and it's more just like, "Okay, how are you feeling?" You know? Just
mhm,
it's a business for them. But
mhm.
this is our lives. This is our
Right.
lives, and so you definitely need that sense of community. I am the type of person, I seek out education. I
Mm,
love to research, I love to read. I definitely think that's, like, why I want to educate so much, and my mom, I just think that that's the mom thing of, like,
yeah.
"Hey, my child has this, what can I do to help?" Because I feel like although I'm not a parent, I feel like for her, it's the, you know, "I'm gonna do everything I can to help because I can't take this away from you, but, like, I'm your parent. Obviously, I'm still gonna wanna, like, do everything I can for you." So,
Mm,
sometimes she comes home and she has printed out articles that she's found, and she's like, "Here, read this." And so we both go back and forth, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, look at this." And that's definitely been what's been our biggest, like, I guess, like, impact in helping us understand this and navigate this because I am first diagnosed. Nobody
mm,
in my family has been diagnosed,
mhm.
before or since I've been diagnosed, so
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for people to understand that there's a quality of life that you can gain by educating yourself and throwing yourself into the information. I mean, we've all heard the stories about you feel a few symptoms and you get on WebMD and you've like totally tortured yourself mentally and you're convinced you're going to die in 3 days, over these like, because I have a cough, or something. But, also there's a positive to that too, is that doing your own research, getting on PubMed, reading some research papers that maybe you don't understand all this lingo yet, but it really immerse yourself into the suspicions that you have of your own body. Like you said, you know it better than anybody else does. And I think it's so important to trust your instincts. I tell people this all the time, is that when you're living with a rare disease, first of all, you are rare. Second of all, that means that the network that exists of medical treatment out there also is, there's rare people in that field that are even going to be available to you. And so you could go for months and years before you find the right person to be able to actually diagnose you properly or give you the right information or the right treatment. But that treatment could be not only life saving, but it also could be quality of life improving. And that's what you've discovered. That's part of your journey, part of your story. But also, I just think, being able to drive that education yourself and put yourself in front of those resources that are available out there could mean the difference between a quality of life and no quality of life, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's so
I I definitely think even if you aren't the type of person that will immerse yourself in all of that, if you follow along with certain things. I mean, there's so many accounts that share just like even important information about what's going on in current like medicine. You never know what you'll find or
mhm.
who you'll find. Like you'll never know what kind of group of people you find. I mean, a lot of my closest friends and people I consider family are within the community. So
Yeah.
I definitely think it's overall physical, mental well-being to
Yeah.
put in that effort because you never know what you'll find and the
So
opportunities you'll be given.
that's so good. That's so good, Sophie. Well, you are truly an inspiration to all of us. I know that just watching you through your journey, you have really, invested your energy to stay positive, to try to find a solution and not get stuck in the of the the really the discouragement that often comes with this redirection, misdiagnosis, dismissal of symptoms, all of the things that go along with really a rare disease. And I think so many people out there living with, there has been a lack of research, there's been a lack of resources, and there's been a lack of education in von Willebrand's disease. A lot of times it's coupled with other diseases like hemophilia, and sometimes that, unfortunately the information is not as prevalent in some of those. But oddly enough, the potential of population wise, the CDC actually expects that there's far more people living with von Willebrand's than there are even with other rare bleeding disorders like hemophilia or plasminogen deficiency or any of these other rare bleeding disorders. So it's quite interesting. Von Willebrand's disease actually could potentially be not even considered rare if everyone was diagnosed, because they estimate there could be upwards of 300,000 people diagnosed, and you have to be under 200,000 in order to be considered rare. So it's wild to think of all of, like, if we really just all dove into researching and investing ourselves into actually understanding these symptoms and these challenges that we're experiencing personally. I do think that rising tides lifts all ships. It could help not just ourselves, but it could help other people too. And so that's what really inspires me about you, is that you're not just a champion for yourself. You're also invested in, being present and learning yourself, but also helping other people along the way. So thank you so much for all that you do for our community. Thank you for just sharing and having the courage to be vulnerable, to get your story out there. And thanks again for doing the article in the Hope Factor magazine. If you haven't read this yet, you need to get your hands on one of these, because they are, it's a great story. But great to see you as always, Sophie. And I so appreciate your willingness to be with us today on the Prevent podcast coming up.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk to you soon. And I guess one last shameless plug here. I know we have an event coming up right around the corner, July 24th, for Von Willebrand's education specifically. I'm super excited about this. It's the first time we've done this. It's our inaugural event specifically addressing this issue, because there are so many needs. Is there any advice or any encouragement you give to anybody out there that might be watching this and thinking, maybe I have these symptoms, maybe I should get plugged in? Like, what would you tell people, that should they come, and what will they benefit from the conversation?
I definitely recommend to anybody, even if you don't have vulnerable brains and you want to learn more, definitely tune in. And even if you don't understand everything that we're talking about, you'll still enjoy the community, and you may
Mm.
hear someone's story, and they may be able to help you in something that you're dealing with, because you never know who you'll meet.
That's so good. We have a lot of great sessions lined up for this event. I know we're doing a session on an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, talking about preventative treatment. We have another session by Dr. Claudio Sandoval, who I know you know, and he's just a champion for people, especially women with bleeding disorders. But he talks about preventing bleeding episodes in von Willebrand's. He's specifically he's unpacking the details of some clinical trials that have been going on, which is really exciting. You mentioned earlier about iron deficiency. Amber Federizo, she's doing a great presentation on prevention of iron deficiency and how that can be a metric that can lead to understanding your von Willebrand's disease. So that's super cool. And then we're talking about self-infusion and talking about independence for those people who are on infused medications. So I just think I'm so excited about this event because it's been long needed, and I have been wanting to do something about this for a long time. So I just am excited about it. I know you are too, and I just hope people come because it's one of those things where it is live. You have to listen in, and I know you've done a bunch of these with us, but not all things are created equal. I know you might have participated in a webinar in the past. It was kind of boring and dry, but I mean, Sophie, you tell me. I think we try to make it kind of fun and entertaining, right? I mean,
It's fun. The moment
yeah,
you get on, y'all are playing music, and
that's
I think
right. We have a good
it's
time.
good. It is a good time.
We have a little dance party and all kinds of stuff going on.
And then sometimes you win prizes, which is
You
also
win
very
prizes. That's
yeah.
right. We do raffles in every session. It's so much fun. So come get registered. Come hang out with us. You can actually go to our website right now at hope-charities.org. You can learn more about the event right there on the homepage and then click on that and find out about the sessions that we talked about, all that stuff. But Sophie, again, thank you so much for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Awesome.
Bye.
Well, thank you so much for tuning into this pre-event podcast. I'm super excited about this event. As I mentioned earlier, make sure that you go to the website, hope-charities.org, register for this event. I really think you're going to learn some valuable information, hear from some incredible speakers. We want to say a big thank you to our event sponsor, Octapharma, who will be supporting this event. And I'm super excited about all of the things going on because I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of folks. You can also email us any questions you might have ahead of time at events at hope-charities.org. We would love to answer those questions for you. And if you have some suggestions for future educational opportunities, this is the great email to be able to send that to as well. That's somehow how we advance our educational programming, is to make certain that we make the right education and information provided to you at the right time possible. But like I said before, July 24th, mark your calendar and go to the website and register right now for this free event. It's going to be a load of fun. We're going to do prizes and giveaways and all kinds of fun stuff. And we're going to have some great opportunities to learn more together. But a big thank you to Sophie for sharing her story today. Go to the website, get signed up for the Hope Factor if you haven't yet. The whole issue is dedicated to people living with von Willebrand's disease and talking about the struggles and challenges that you live with. And you can learn more about Sophie right there in that magazine. It's going to be a great issue to make certain that you have on your shelf. So thanks so much for joining.